All right, so you're welcome back, and we're going to be looking at the entrepreneurial environment, looking at both the internal and the external environment. Now, when we talk about the internal entrepreneurial environment, again, we recall we said the entrepreneurial environment basically looks at, the elements that basically supports and assists entrepreneurs towards making sure that their idea, their startup, or their businesses are able to thrive, within the environment in which they find themselves, and basically determines how successful entrepreneurs can be once they have a feasible idea. So with the internal environment, we're looking at factors like the family background. We're also looking at factors like the educational background, the training and work experience, desire for achievement, and then desire to head a unit. Now, with that, when we talk about the internal environment, we're talking about usually what brings about an individual to become who they are in society. And usually, of course, is the background, foundational background of how that person grew up, the orientation of the family in terms of, how the family has been able to orient the individual towards becoming a risk taker, or becoming somebody that's creative or thinks out of the box. And all this is determined by the orientation of the family. So when we talk about family background, and it also doesn't stop at that, it also looks at the immediate community in which you find yourself when we talk about the family background. So the community in which you find yourself, the traditions, the values, the principles that exist there, and what you have seen as you've grown up as an individual, then determines the outcome of who you're going to be in the future. And that's what the family background tends to emphasize on. Of course, we see how whether in Nigeria or different countries, whereby you see the difference between the orientation of different societies, whereby it's more of creativity and thinking out of the box than anything. Now, I always say this when you talk about the orientation of our typical Nigerian system, whereby you have a family unit, and the father, the mother, they want to see you either be a lawyer or a doctor or an engineer. And whether as a youth you want, that's what you want to do, or that's your dream or not, basically you have to for the honor of the family, that you have to then pursue it. And at the end of the day, again, it's about the orientation. And that's why I feel it's important that parents understand, as a parent, and understanding, as somebody that pursues entrepreneurship, is essential that you allow your child to be focused on what they're passionate about. And because at the end of the day, that is what they're willing to pursue, no matter what. That's what they're going to be persistent on, and that is very likely where they're going to thrive. So that family background, and how the orientation of that family background goes a long way in determining how it's going to make or break the youth or the individual. Then the educational background is also another important aspect. Of course, the educational background here, we're talking about from primary to tertiary level. And I think that's another issue, that kind of major issue that we tend to see in Nigeria. But with that, when you talk about the educational background, how has the individual been able to pursue their education in terms of their level of understanding, IQ, and intellectual capacity as an individual, and from where they started. You have we know that in Nigeria there's a large population that is uneducated, and with that brings about that inconsistency in the foundation, to then give them the ability and capability to be creative, to think out of the box, and things like that. So your educational background and your level of education, goes a long way in determining that. I do want to say that a lot of entrepreneurs are uneducated. They don't have education. But I think education here goes also in line with exposure. With your level of exposure and what you learn. So a lot of things, yes, if for any reason you don't have a certain level of education, you can learn on your own. Knowledge now is free. It's not like before, whereby it's your ability and willingness to learn that gives you more information to then build yourself at the foundational stage. Then also training and work experience is very important. Again, the orientation of wanting to learn and wanting to equip yourselves with so many skills and knowledge and expertise becomes essential. So like right now, my production crew, I have an intern here, Bisayo, who is trying to learn the game of how it works, and the whole point is that nobody's pushing him to do this, but he wants to and he's willing to do that, and through that he's able to build himself up to become his own production manager by God's grace. Or how do you see it, Messiah? So with that, it's essential that an individual has that willingness to want to learn, to build themselves up to become something in the future. And then also the desire for achievement, which goes hand in hand with what I'm talking about. You have to have that willingness, but then that does go back to the family orientation. It is usually what you learn from when you're very young, in terms of the orientation of what your family gives you, that determines your desire or level to want to achieve something. And once you have that desire, then you're willing to go to any lengths to make sure you achieve it. And even if you fail, and I think that's something that we always have to understand, with entrepreneurship, is not about having the best antidote or formula to succeeding. It's about understanding that failure, challenges are imminent in any situation, but how do you set your mind to be able to kind of withstand any situation that comes to you when you're trying to pursue your passion or your business or your desires. So it's very important that you have that high level of desire to achieve, but the only way that can be there is if you have the passion to what you are trying to achieve. And it goes back to what I talked about of allowing youths or the youths being able to pursue what they're passionate about, because that brings the desire for achievement to be high. Then, of course, the desire to head a unit. This goes back to being a leader and having certain leadership qualities. Some people say leaders are born. Some people say leaders are made. I think, of course, is one of the is both too in terms of how you see it. But of course, anybody can be a leader. But you have to then know what skills you need to have to be able to do that. Emotional skills, interpersonal skills, communication skills, ability to be an orator, whereby you have the ability to talk to people and they listen, and being able to translate your vision to and communicate it to others, whereby it stirs their emotions and gets them to jump on board in what you're doing. And again, having that desire to understand that to be an entrepreneur, you have to be able to lead. You have to be able to coordinate a unit in a way that you're able to translate your vision into actions through heading or coordinating that unit or that business or startup which you want to pursue. And these are basically the internal environment. So with the internal environment, generally, if you look at it, is more focused on the foundations of activities that take place to then mold you to become the individual who you want to inspire to be. And what that means at the end of the day is that for a society like Nigeria, a society, we have to make sure that we provide that support that the youths need towards being creative, being a risk taker, being a leader, being communicative, having empathy, emotional intelligence to manage a team. And if we're able to imbibe it into them, through the education system, through the family units, through others support services like training and workshop experiences, then it goes a long way to them mold them and orient them to be that role model or that ideal model of entrepreneurs that we're looking for in society.